got that time. Okay. And calling the meeting to order. Thank you everyone for being here. Before we go to the approval of the minutes, if you haven't read them, I apologize for not including them in the packet I sent out, but you do have them in the packet that's in front of you. I'm going to give all of you a homework assignment, something that you have to think about and then report back at the end of the meeting. We'll follow up with that. And it's about recruiting. So I want you to all think in the next hour, or hopefully less than an hour, about what you can do in the next 30 days, who you could approach or what organization you're in that you could maybe make an announcement about the fact that we need more members. Everybody okay? Yeah, just want to make sure. And then to let you know what I've been doing, I did reach out to Rachel Swanson, who is, by the way, going to be hosting our visitors at the Zion Cemetery, but I am meeting with her also on Thursday just to talk about, the hosting. And I wanted to make sure, and so I reached out to her and asked her if she wanted to join again. She's not replied, but I will follow up. And also she has a son who is a freshman in high school, who would be a great member and take our student position. Then I also did a presentation at Hope Village I was shocked at how many people came to it. I just didn't even know that many people would come. But it was on the history of the city hall, the historic city hall. And I did pass out brochures for them to see, but also applications. Unfortunately, no one has returned in an application to Tyler yet. So, but I will also reach out next Tuesday, not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow at the coffee and remind people that we have openings and to encourage them because they really ask a lot of good questions. So they're really interested in the history of the community. And so I'm hoping that something will jar there. Also looking forward, in January, I am going to resign as chair. So I want you all to be thinking about, would you like to be chair? Would you like to be recorder? Would you like to be vice chair? Because our next two meetings are November and December. And so we'll do the selection in December. I just need a break. Okay, so Ron, you want to go to the minutes?
Maybe we should give everybody a minute to look at them.
Good point. I'm gonna call Jason.
Oh, we got it back.
Sorry, I got kicked off, but I'm back.
Okay. I was just hoping it wasn't something I did.
No, it was on my end. Sorry, Carol, continue.
Okay, everybody's just reading the minutes.
Good to me. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the August meeting.
Any second?
I'll second.
Any objections? All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion is passed. The minutes are approved. Okay, Zora Cemetery and the OLCC warehouse. For those of you that are not familiar with the OLCC warehouse, it is going in right off of Walnut, right by Walnut. Actually, that's not Walnut, that's Haynes Road, isn't it? Haynes and.
There's one, yeah.
Yeah, walnut.
Okay,
I pass by it every once in a while.
yeah, it is huge. And Zora Cemetery happens to be sort of stuck right in the middle of it. And so I was really concerned, and Jennifer had brought up some very good concerns about how close to the edge of the cemetery that they were using backhoes and that sort of thing. And so I followed up and sent an email I found out who it was that at the OLCC who would be like overseeing the project. And I sent an email to him and about several concerns. Had they done the appropriate thing in terms of getting the archaeological okay? Had they done everything about and raised some concerns that I actually talked to David Tate, who is the church office administrator for the church, and he said his big concern was the fact that if they had children there and the children ran out, you know, there's gonna be lots of trucks going in and out all over the place. And so there was a real safety concern, and did we need a safety fence around the cemetery? So I raised that issue, and then also they said they were gonna plant things, but there's no water there. And so, were they gonna provide water? That was another one thing I mentioned to them. So, I don't know everything that happened, but I think I shook a few people up, because the good news is the OLCC people met with the church again. So, and they went through everything that they were doing, and they did say that they did leave a 25-foot space around the cemetery, and they weren't digging in closer than that.
Okay.
That's what they say. They are saying that they will maintain, that they will put in the barrier, the natural barrier, so shrubs, whatever, and that they will be in charge of maintaining it, which is good. So I think there's still an issue with security fencing, but they addressed that issue, I think, by saying, you know, now that the trucks are gonna be over here. So there was a discussion at least about the safety issue, and apparently the church people are all happy. There's not really much more that we can do, but
No.
it's just, I think the good news is, out of this whole thing, is that now David knows that we exist and that he could get cemetery grant funding, and that I would help him with that if he needed that. And then the other thing that is good is that he has the records for that cemetery, but he wants to make sure that they're correct. And when I reached out to Rachel Swanson, she and her boys are going to go out and they're going to go through his records. It says who's on which row, and double check, is that the gravesite that's really there, that it says so on the record, so that they can get it as close to correct as possible. So all of that ended up okay. The Oregon Heritage Joint Meeting, you have the agenda in front of you underneath the minutes. Hope anybody has any questions about that. This has taken up way more of my life than I wanted it to, I can tell you that. Just trying to get. So what will happen when these folks get here, before they get here, they will all have packets. And I have been sending them information to include in the packet. So every site that they're going to, they have information. So they're not just walking in cold. And then they have this schedule. I was trying to work with the chamber, with Shatrine, our chamber director, on doing something like a passport, so that they could use their badge, and then they'd go to to Cones maybe and get 10 cents off of a ice cream cone, something like that. And apparently none of the merchants were really excited about that. So she suggested instead, and she volunteered that the chamber would purchase, did you see that?
Yeah. Mhm.
The chamber would purchase a gift certificate. So if the people who come here, if they buy something like a cone, get the receipt, and then we'll turn those in. If you get 3 receipts, then your receipts and your name go into a drawing, and they'll draw for the gift certificate. Now, I don't know what the gift certificate is for.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it is. So I've got to kind of figure that out with Shatrine. But the idea is, if we've got people here, my thought was, let's make sure they go in the businesses
Mhm.
and are actually
Mhm.
buying things. So maybe that'll work.
Yeah.
I kind of liked the passport idea, but that wasn't their thing. And for all of you to know, all of these meetings are all open to the public. So if you see anything on here that you want to attend, it is
Right.
considered open.
Yep.
And I'm going to put together a press release to give to the
Maybe the-
Herald.
Okay.
So that they know, because I just think it'd be nice for the people in the town to know that we're gonna have visitors. Are you able to get the banner for the
Mhm.
arch? Oh, great.
Yes.
Super. Anything else on the Oregon Heritage meetings? Any questions? One of our hosts has backed out. So I'm gonna have to do double duty at the old police building and the city hall. So that'll be interesting. But I don't think on that particular day, I didn't think for the open houses, and you care about this, I don't think we're gonna have a lot of people here. I think it's just anybody who's come in from outside, but who's here early enough to actually go to the open houses. So,
You got my info, right?
yeah, and I
Oh,
sent
okay.
that out.
Okay.
It's in the packet.
Okay, good.
Packets like
one.
this. It's just,
Sorry, I tried to keep it short.
you did great.
You guys did good.
Yeah, every time I sent her something that was 7 pages, I thought, oh my God, yeah. But it's
Good.
their budget. For duplication, okay, our status for our intensive level survey. We did not have blueprints to give them, but we found some other things that I could send them, which was great. They are on track, they should be ahead of schedule, so right now, we are 100% ready. They are, so the next step will probably be, they'll be contacting us, and I suspect they'll want to do a presentation in one of our meetings. Because we do have public meetings, and so that way they'll be able to check the box of, yes, we did a public presentation. Website. Tyler and I sat down. Tyler has done a bunch of it already. I was so excited. If you go to our website, you'll see that the code is not there. Yes.
Oh.
You will see that there are boxes and there are some photos on there, and there's even some quotes, which we've got. So we just have a little bit more to do. Olivia needs to get us that banner photo. We're missing that. And then the color needs to be changed, but Tyler's working with Dave on that. Correct me, anything I say that's not correct. Dave is our guy at Civic Plus, which is our the city's web person, web company, I guess.
Yeah.
So, I don't have a revised plan for us, so I need to put that together, just, make sure we get all the boxes checked.
And shout out to Maya Benham for helping. She's helped a little bit with the website too, so reorganizing that too. So yeah, yeah. So
Our tagline, did that get in here? Okay. I just need. Said we table this and come back and say, okay, now that we've all thought about it, last month's homework, which tagline do you still like? Vote for preserving our community sites, stories, and small town,
Cover the whole thing.
Okay. We'll use that. We'll add that, Tyler.
which one is that? You guys say, oh, the preserving our, okay,
Official thought one,
Okay.
yeah.
yeah. Added that to the website.
And kind of like like italicized or something, just
Yeah.
make it stand out. Comp plan. I want to talk about that.
Sure. Candy has, Emma can correct me if I'm overstating or misstating. Candy is under a planning effort for a multi-year update of the comp plan and the transportation system plan. And the process is called Cultivating Canby. And to help the staff and the consultant, there is a project advisory board committee. And every one of the city boards and commissions is represented on that board, including us. And I went to a meeting to represent HLC. They're drafting goals and policies. They've had some public meetings for public input. And they're trying to integrate elements of the historic preservation plan. It's 5 years old now. And making special efforts to discuss and draft and refine goals and policies. Carol and I participated in a discussion with planning staff. Don and Emma were part of that, and Emma did a really, excuse me, good job. She can use color very effectively. I think that's in the packet. So she was assigned the task of looking at the historic preservation plan and then highlighting what we can change and suggesting some of those changes, and then how those changes would be incorporated into the new comp plan. So we're we haven't scheduled a meeting yet. I guess we have scheduled a meeting
Yeah, we do.
to come back later in October to continue that discussion, and I think that concludes my report.
Yeah, I would just add that the thing that they're doing is, which is a good thing, is the policies and goals that make sense out of the historic preservation plan will be actually included in the comp plan. So that's great. Now, we've just massaged a little of the language. Sometimes there were things that were like, no, that isn't really, we wanted it to be a little broader or whatever. So there weren't a lot of changes there. What didn't get and it isn't included is the actual implementation where it's project by project by project by project. But instead they refer to them in the comp plan, they will refer to the historic preservation plan. It'll be that it will be assumed that we are working on those implementation things, like, the fact that we did the RLS of the fairgrounds. That was one of the things that was in the historic preservation plan. So those are the kinds of things that are in the implementation plan too. And we did find a couple of things that were actually already done that were considered to be policies. One is there's an energy saving component that was in the historic preservation plan that we were supposed to work with Canby Utility. And I had actually done that. Sent the information to Canby Utility, had a conversation with the manager there via email. He assured me that everything that we were looking for in the historic preservation plan was already being done. And so Dawn and Emma have confirmed that, because I think we have a new Canby Utility manager now, a different person probably. And so we found out that the actual energy saving group that oversees this is right out of Bonneville Power. So that's now in the comp plan. Or I guess maybe we're not going to include it in the comp plan. Or now that we know that's done, Emma, will it be in the comp plan or will it be taken out?
I don't recall. I have to double check because I think we may be just reaffirming that is,
Okay.
a value and approach that we want to have and maintain that program for folks. I think that was where the policy went.
So that was an example then of something where we're just changing the language because things have changed a little bit. We've already done the investigation. We've already confirmed it's there. Now it's just a matter of we want to keep going forward and keep those energy saving practices in place. So, Emma, swim center remodel.
Yeah.
Faster, fast.
Can you all hear me okay? Am I okay?
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't going out at all because my internet's being a little wonky. So the swim center is planning to do some improvements down there, mostly interior improvements, just to improve basically around the pool, like locker rooms and that sort of stuff. And Carol reminded us that there is actually a state law that anytime there is a project on a public property, if the building that exists is 50 years or older, it is required to be evaluated for its historic preservation. So that building for the swim center does meet it because it's a public building. The city doesn't actually own the property, but the school district does. So it is a public building and on a publicly owned site. So we went ahead and started that process and worked with the swim center folks and their architect to get, SHPO has a form that you fill out to initiate the process of, hey, SHPO, we're doing this to this building that meets this criteria. It's a public building, it's over 50 years old. So we shared that preliminary information with SHPO, which was pretty high level, knowing that, we knew the interior likely didn't have historic value, and that's really where the changes were focused. So we shared that information with SHPO, I want to say 2 or 3 months ago, and sent them the form that they had, and heard back about a month later that that building, Carol, you might need to help me with my verbiage here, but that building couldn't qualify to be historic designated or eligible for.
Well, they're not very clear, quite frankly. This letter is really annoying. As you know, I was really annoyed with the letter, and I sent a nasty note to SHPO. I don't normally do that. It said, could you please be more clear? It says, we concur that there will be no historic properties affected by this building. Well, what do you mean, no historic properties? If the historic property is, it is 50 years old, it is a public property. If it has lost its historic integrity, then that's a reason why there would be no damage to it. It's already lost. If the work is all being done inside and not on the outside, that's another reason, but it doesn't say that here. It leaves you to believe that it's not a historic building. Now,
Sure.
and it is, technically it's 50 years old. And it has a lot of significance. So, yeah. So I think it's probably because all of the work is interior, and so the exterior is not going to, but I sure would be nice if they would have said that. I'm really irritated.
Yeah, I agree it would be, but to get, kind of clarity on where, what criteria did it meet to kind of fall
Yeah.
under this bucket?
Yeah.
Which we haven't gotten, or I haven't heard anything in more specifics. But so we know for that project, we've kind of closed the loop.
That's right.
And yeah, the project is almost nearly interior. There might be a little bit at the entrance that's changing, but not a whole lot. So that's a SHPO process that, is available and required of public projects. And so I wanted to share a little bit about the Swim Center and just share that. Thanks to Carol for helping keeping us keep tabs on this. And this is kind of now in the sphere of awareness for, folks working on city projects. The city projects, kind of run through many departments and are led by various departments. So myself and Don Hardy, the planning director, have kind of been sharing this out
Good.
with other departments and kind of making sure it's on their radar for, when they start a project, and kind of going through that checklist. Is it 50 years old? If there's a building, and, making sure that there's time allotted for this process. So
That is
yeah.
great. That's a real step forward, because it's always been sort of a battle because folks don't realize that, it's publicly owned. We have an obligation. So, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Friends of Caris. I wanted to just let all of you know that they had a really successful fundraising event at McMinimans, and they got $3,000, which is a lot. That's really a lot for that kind of thing. They are in the process of trying to now get get grants. So they have submitted a couple of grant applications, and I have invited them to, I'm doing a little mini grant workshop this Thursday at 4 o'clock, because I'm on the Cultural Coalition Board and our grant program is now open. And I would like to get more money from that program into Canby, into things. And so we've got, Karis is coming, I think Dina is coming, as well as Laura from Slice of
Summer.
Summer. And then also Marissa and whoever her person is on the Friends of Library that writes grants. And I believe, and I've invited Brian from the Depot to see if they can use that funding too. So hopefully if they all, what I'm going to walk them through is I sat through a session with my counterparts where we went through like 50 some grants, and that is a mind-numbing experience, let me tell you. And so there were some that were really written well and very specific and easy to fund. And then there were some that were a little more iffy. They just weren't quite as tight, and it didn't have quite as much information. And that's all the kind of stuff that we're looking for in a grant. So hopefully I can use this opportunity to coach people and say, this is an example of what a really good grant would look like. And this is, so hopefully that will help them get more money.
Carol, what's the organization that gives the grant that you're talking about?
It's the Clackamas County Cultural Coalition Board. We are the ones that review the grants. The money actually comes from two sources. You don't care about that. But I think we're about to lose one of our sources. The county's in deep trouble.
So the county's one of the sources?
Yeah, really in deep trouble right now. So bad. So it was a 1-year thing, and I don't think it's been approved for multi-year. So the rest of the money just comes from the Cultural Trust, which is a statewide thing. But if you know anyone, an organization who might be eligible to use, typically it's 501, it's nonprofits, but it is, the cultural trust, the other thing they do is they give money to individuals and to businesses. So it's not just, but you've got to meet their criteria. So anyway, they are a little looser than some of the grant programs. Okay. Any questions on that? Oh, Karis, you have the memorandum of agreement in here that was developed between the SHPO and the Canby School District. And I put that in here because it relates back to what Emma was talking about with 50-year-old public building. So at one time, the school district was going to just tear down the building. And so this was what SHPO was requiring them to do to sort of mitigate that tearing down of a 50-year-old building that was indeed deemed to be historic and qualified. I think it was eligible special for the National Register. So what happened is the building got moved instead. At the last minute, the folks who are now the Friends of Karis borrowed money. Oh my God, don't ever borrow money to move an old building. They borrowed money to move that building and they moved it to somebody's back 40. Literally, it's on a farm now.
Oh.
And yeah, the problem with that is that farm is a EFU, which means you can't do anything other than, unless they want to put hay in the building. That's about all they can do with it. And so they lost their historic designation when they moved it, which is like, so why did, why? So right now we're trying to coach, Peggy Sigler and I are trying to coach them through, okay, you need to go back to the county because that's where your historic preservation planner is, Joy Fields. And you need to be working with her to get a historic zoning overlay, because if you get a historic zoning overlay, then that's going to help you do things, because they want to do things that are really cool, like FFA meetings, agricultural exhibits. They really want to play on the agricultural site and make that part of it. And there happens to be a super old barn on the site too that they think they're going to pull in. And Peggy and I are both going, hold off on that, just later, one thing at a time. But yeah, so never borrow money to move an old building though. They literally had to find, they had
How
to.
much money are we talking about?
A lot.
I mean,
It costs a lot of money to move a building. Yeah.
Really? Like a couple thousand?
for 100,000.
Yeah, probably 100. I think it
Yeah.
was 100,000 to move the depot originally.
Yes.
Yeah, that was that was not only to
Wow.
move it, but for them to restore it for us.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, it was 100,000 just to move it.
And
Yeah,
we did it for 18.5.
yeah. Well,
And
whatever.
that just moved the building.
Yeah, just,
We did the rest.
But that was.
Wow.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's a big deal. And so they thought, when I first started meeting with them, they thought they could get the money through grants. And I said, no granting agency in the universe, in the whole galaxy will give you money to pay off a loan. It just isn't gonna happen.
Yeah.
So they've had to do fundraising, and I think a lot of really nice donors stepped forward and said, maybe forgave the loan, because they were borrowing from people.
Oh, got it.
So.
Hmm.
But I really wanted you to be aware of the fact that there is something called a memorandum of agreement and there is something called mitigation. So it doesn't mean that SHPO ever just stops and says, no, you cannot tear down this building, or no, but they do ask you to do some things to honor the fact that it was a historic site. The mitigation for when the city sold the city hall, the mitigation for that was putting it on the local register. That was the mitigation. I even have that agreement on my laptop somewhere. Okay, so on last week, I guess it was, we met with Curry Gill from the State Historic Preservation Office to review our CLG program, and you have the program review document in here. We passed. Our code is fine. We meet all of the requirements. She did have some suggestions for us, and I think they were very good. A lot of those suggestions really involves, I think, working with planning. And one of the suggestions was, and most of those things also are things that Curry told us we could use our next certified local government grant for, which tells me that we need to have planning at the table when we're talking about what we're going to be doing for our next certified local government grant. What are the projects? A project that she mentioned was a training session or maybe even a handout for our Public Works Department and probably even for Canby Utility on if you're gonna dig. You know, what are the things that you have to do? So, and she pointed out for us where we could get some of that, where other cities have that maybe we could use, copy, paste what they've done. We also talked about having design standards. And Ashland has a design standards apparently, and I thought that would be a fabulous thing to have. And we talked about maybe using that as on a proactive basis with our property owners who have historic sites now that are designated, that once a year reaching out to them and reminding them of the fact that they are in a historic site and we value that, and maybe sharing with them our design standards. So the design standards would be based on what's in the Secretary of Interior standards, but they're written in people language as opposed to, and that's really important, that the language be not very technical. I thought those were all really good ideas and I'm kind of keeping them in my head for the next CLG grant program. Night House, if you've driven by, there's lots of people there and there's lots going on. But there isn't anything going on that they didn't tell us was going to go on.
Yeah.
And it's all stuff that is needed to be done to meet code. Even though I cringe a little as I go by, which I do pretty frequently. Every step you take.
That's the problem with historic preservation is the code gets in the way.
Yeah, well, I tried on their behalf to get a variance, but I was shut down because what I was looking for a variance on was the ramp. And it's not that it wasn't. The issue wasn't the ramp, but we wanted to do the ramp, but the issue was what could we do to make it a little less costly, like instead of having 2 ramps, could we get by with 1, which I thought was probably okay. But SHPO would not go to bat for us because so much of the building and historic integrity has been lost by the previous contractor who took down all the siding and we put hardy plank on it. Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Oh, but Night House seems to be doing fine and I haven't heard anything from the property owner, which is a good thing.
Mhm.
And so now, here we are at the end of the meeting. So what are you gonna do about help, about recruiting? Doug, got any ideas? Maybe some Kiwanis friends?
I passed the word on at every Kiwanis meeting.
Okay, good, keep doing that, okay?
Mhm.
Because sometimes you get new members.
Yep.
So Ron, any ideas from you?
I really don't know anybody other than the good friends here.
You gotta get out more.
I'm happy with.
Join a few places.
You have an
I got a list
HOA?
for you.
We do, but it's the developer.
Oh, the developer, okay, because he's still there.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, he's probably not gonna be much of a help.
no,
Okay. Keep thinking on it though.
I will.
Okay. Jennifer, you got anybody in mind?
Is there, I don't know, I think of like the local business owners, like the chamber and things, like you would think that maybe there might be somebody that's a local business owner that is pretty proactive and likes to get involved with things that maybe is in the downtown area that might take an interest in this type of stuff. It's just really hard because people are so busy and, you know,
Yeah.
it's another thing. And
I'll reach out to Shatri.
I'm just thinking maybe they can put a little blurb out in their chamber communications and say, hey, have you ever thought about this? Maybe you have you're in a property that, or are interested in this type of thing.
Well, there's a person who works at the chamber, Laura,
Yeah,
might be interested, because she, I worked with them on the chamber
Yeah.
gala thing. And so and one of the things the theme was about a murder that had taken place in Canby in the late 1800s. It was a mystery theme. Who did it? No one knows. And Laura was really interested in that and commented to me several times about, well, I really like it when you come to the meetings because you tell us stuff I didn't even know about. So maybe Laura, I'll reach out to Laura.
yeah, and I've announced it at the chamber luncheons and stuff like that,
Oh, good, thank you.
so I could try that again and just remind people that we're looking. But Yeah,
Cool.
and maybe Shatrine could put something in their newsletter as well, because I know that they do a newsletter as well as we do a newsletter, so.
Yeah. Good. And then looking forward, I forgot to mention something that I wanted to mention, and that is, you know, we are also eligible for the Cultural Coalition grants. And so be thinking about projects and stuff, because our CLG grant is going to expire in about April-ish, I think. And so we'll have some open time there. So if we want to do some other projects like cemetery or anything like that, that would be something good to do next year. Get some money for that, because the cemetery grant also will be opening up in April. I don't think any of the other grants really come in play for us. But start planning ahead of time for next year. Anybody have anything else?
Just one thing,
Yes.
the quartet that I sing with went to Silverton. Have you heard of the Silverton Shindig? This is its 14th year. And I guess the best way I could describe it is, street musicians who are assigned various places. Something that I noticed on just about every single building in Silverton, there was a brass plaque denoting what it had been years before. Another interesting note, we stopped at a place that there was a wine bar. And I think it was called Oso or something like that. We sang for the staff and we sang for the patrons, and we were a hit. So I think we're becoming the house band.
Cool. Brass plaques are expensive, and we can't use our CLG grant for that, but there are other sources that we could, if we want to go with that. We did get plaques originally that are on the building now. They're really difficult to read. They're black on black, or they're gray on black, and they're on the buildings, some of the buildings, but not all of them. There's nothing that says we have to leave those there, that we could replace them with nicer plaques, and brass would certainly be nice. I know that Mary Hanlon did put on the city hall a really nice one. Brass plaque. Thank you, Mary. That came out of her pocket, not ours.
I have one thing.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about this, and then as I looked at this handout where it was the inadvertent discovery. So I hadn't noticed until it had started, but they broke ground over on that huge warehouse.
Huge.
And I had noticed the fence going up, and then literally like 3 days later, the entire thing was completely bulldozed. I mean, it happened so fast, I couldn't even bat an eye. And I was thinking about that as it was happening, because although that is a big field and it's been farmed by the Wygants for many, many years, I think they owned it. There was an area with trees with a lot of rocks that I wasn't really sure what had been there before, but my concern again was like, what are the plans that are in place when we completely bulldoze and take off? I don't know, they must have taken off in some areas like 10 feet of top dirt.
Oh,
And like, are they even looking for any, because anytime you come across like the remains of a building or something, and I know, I mean, Laura would be maybe the property, oh, there's been nothing on here for, 100 years, but do we really know that? And I mean, my concern is that as we break more ground in the industrial park, in agricultural areas, I know there's areas that have already been designated and sold that are in the process, but what are we doing now to think about that? And I don't know, I really don't know whether the companies have this on their radar, if they're even thinking about it, if they're briefed on these things, like what do you do if you find something, because you're supposed to really stop,
Yeah, it's supposed to.
like, but are they stopping when they're going 100 miles an hour?
If it's public property and it's a public, and the companies, and it's a public owner, like say the OLCC, I could ask them that, but when it's a private, I don't know. Emma, do we have any requirements that for those folks that are building out in the agricultural areas that they go through the discovery procedures?
I'm not sure. So grading permits are issued by Public Works. So they would know specifically how that works.
Okay.
I've never heard of, anything coming up or having, be any conversations about that in my time, but yeah, that's not to say that it hasn't happened. But yeah, grading is led by Public Works. I think unfortunately, right, they're public companies, so we can share, you could put a sheet in their approval, their initial approval to say, hey, you can start grading. You could maybe put a fact sheet in, but
Put it
it's
in
all
a
we can do is
contract.
provide them information,
Well,
really.
it is in our, under archaeological resources, and I know it's in teal, so I don't mean, I know that probably means that we're going to put it in. Develop policies and procedures for ground disturbing public and private works within the city requirement permit to identify and address potential impacts to archaeological resources, including a discovery plan that could be included with permits involving ground disturbing work. Because, I mean, that could have also Native American resources on that. It's a major trail going through to Malala, that's part of that trail too. I know it's not a public, publicly owned, but you would still think that there needs to be some education, or at least some,
I can reach out to the Public Works and see what I know that Jerry's very informed of all the
Yeah.
procedures and rules around those. And just see if anything's come up and what he's done to mitigate those.
Yeah.
If anything has come up, and then how to do so in the future too, so.
it may
and the
not, there may
report
not have
documents.
been anything. It's
Yeah.
just that it's all about
Yeah.
really being aware
Right.
of that. Cause when you're a guy driving one of those massive earth
Yeah.
movers, you're sure not taking time to, I mean, I don't know if they walked it to survey, like to even
Yeah.
look and see what was there, or whether they just started going full guns.
Yeah.
On a timeline, so, it's a little late.
Yeah, I'll bring it up to Public Works and Jerry and just get some information on that. And then,
Is there anything that we can do to require that
That's
they
what I'll-
have?
yeah.
So
And
I just want to add two things in terms of a requirement. The easiest place to place a requirement that is held to the development to is at the land use stage. But, for that project specifically, it's been over 4 years. That's a unique case, but right, the land use process is happening 1 to 2 years before you're seeing them grading the ground. So how do we, catch, where's the information live to tell them, hey, documentation, I think is something, or even conversations of, how do we get that information in a central place? So, the things that the folks in the community know that, I, as a planner, it's not on a map, where can that information be pulled from? The other thing I'll add is, I may not have the latest and greatest, but the state is currently proposing a state law that is, I think, going through the legislature now, or will at the next session, that is, how do I describe it? Is
that-
giving, Carol, do you have a good description of it?
Well, I was gonna say, is this the one about the cultural resources?
Yes, and the
rulemaking
tribes
is
are
going through right through
giving,
it,
it
yeah.
is going through right now. So I think there's opportunity to comment on
Yes.
that if you'd like. So but conversations that I've been hearing sounds like it's believed that it will probably be approved. And kind of planners are in the Oregon Planner Network have discussed and are kind of seeming to plan ahead. But basically, it will give tribes the right to provide to cities areas where they would like to ask for things to be protected, or right, kind of in this case, say, we know this is here, please, have a designation for this area, that sort of thing. So there's a little bit of state law happening as well that could help with protections with this
Right.
in the future, assuming it gets approved, but sounding like,
Yeah. Rulemaking is what happens after the law is in place. And sometimes the law gets in place and no
Oh, I see.
rulemaking happens for years. We have several things like that I'm aware of. But in this case, what happens with rulemaking is you have somebody somewhere who understands all of this, identifies all the agencies that have a stake in it. So you might have Oregon Heritage, you might have Oregon Parks and Recreation, you might have Land Conservation and Development Commission, whatever, all of those folks, they'll send people into basically a group to start making the rules of how are we going to take this piece of legislation and make it actually have teeth and make it workable and make it not, conflict with anything that we're doing now. And that's exactly what they're doing. And there is a lot of public comment for that. And I think I did send out to everybody. You probably went, oh my God, why is she sending me this? But it was something from Curry again at Oregon Heritage talking about the rulemaking, because it also allows us now to designate cultural areas too, as I understand it. I don't think that's in place yet, but that's one of the things I saw in there. So. But I was just pleased that that language that you just talked about, that we were putting that into our comp plan, because I think that's a big step forward. And then it's a matter of, okay, so how do we make sure when we sign that contract or you go through the land use planning process, that we make sure that those developers know that their contractors need to have an inadvertent discovery plan.
Yeah. I remember when we did the comp plan, when we talked about it, because I don't think we were like, oh, we better, that's one of the things we need to have in there, just in case.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Anybody have anything else? I
Mhm.
think we're done.
Mhm.
Meeting is adjourned.